Amazing. So now we are going to be bringing in Jade. I am really excited about sharing with you guys this wonderful, wonderful human and to get into some of the nitty-gritties of sacred sexuality. So Jade is joining us, and we're going to have a powerful discussion about sacred sexuality, sexual energy, and finding your femininity through sexuality, plus all sorts of other delicious things are going to probably go down. So just before I bring her in, I want to introduce Jade. So Jade is a feminine empowerment leader with a focus on embodiment, archetypal and shadow work, mystic leadership, sacred sexuality, trauma therapy, and coaching. So she's a really multifaceted being. Jade has been devoted to her alchemic journey as a therapist, teacher, leader, and advocate for over 14 years. She wholeheartedly holds a fierce, loving vision of liberation for everyone on the planet through deeper initiations into self-authorship, compassionate power, and reclaiming the feminine wilderness of our true nature. Beautiful poetic words. So thank you. We'll bring Jade in. Hi, Jade. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing really great. I must admit that I am getting to a level of like, oh, there is so much going on because we just had such a wealth of amazing knowledge from the different speakers, and I'm sure it'll be the same for you coming in. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for that beautiful intro as well. I'm really excited to be
here. No problem. So can you tell the viewers where in the world you're tuning in from?
So I'm in Byron Bay, Australia, which is the top end of New South Wales.
Yeah, cool. So Jade is representing from Australia as one of our global practitioners. So thank you so much for making it work with your time zone. I know for you it's a little bit easier of a time zone than some of our practitioners joining in from the UK, for example.
Yeah, there's been a commitment worldwide by the looks of it, everyone coming in from all over. Yeah,
no, it's amazing, really amazing. So I'm so excited about this and getting into some stuff around sacred sexuality and all sorts. So I'd love to start off by asking you, how did you discover your purpose of feminine empowerment coaching?
Yeah, so my journey began when I was about 13 years old. I'm in my mid-30s now, and I found a Jungian psychologist who supported me and introduced me to the realms of the unconscious mind and archetypes and all of this different work, and help me understand and put together some pieces of this feminine realm, that he was actually a male body and he was very in tune with the feminine, and supported me to be able to come and make sense of my inner landscape. And through that journey, it was a deep unraveling of all of these layers. I'd had a very colourful childhood, a lot of things that had happened to me in my childhood that I couldn't really make sense of, and very strong intellect. But there was this point where I could run rings around any kind of sense-making process, but without getting into the feeling of it, it felt like internally I wasn't free. I felt emotions would come up or things would happen for me, and especially around sexuality and relationships, there was a lot of different layers to it where it felt like my sex and my heart was split. And so going on that journey and having an understanding that there was a different way of seeing the world, but also deepening in that which was more the feminine realms of the feeling nature, and not just processing things mentally or intellectually, but bringing that on board and then integrating our heart and our sexuality and all of the facets of being human, which archetypal work really helps with, because these are aspects in our collective psyche that we all have.
I love to hear that your journey started so young as well, and how amazing it is that at 13 you crossed paths with somebody who was able to step into that kind of teaching role, but that you had the perspective at an early age to recognize the variances in your journeys because of the gender that you were identifying with, and how that kind of led to this desire to reach more into that feminine energy. That's so cool.
Yeah, so I guess the seeds were planted there and then it continued on in different ways. So when I was 15, I studied belly dance with a really amazing woman who was not so much into the performance, but more into the energy. And so she was training me around breathing, around expression, around unlocking the body and this, so I had a lot of teachers early on and I needed it, really, I needed it. So every single one of these aspects or angles that was different to the normal narrative was like a lifeline for me. And as I went on, I found myself in my 20s, and even with those resources, feeling very dark, in a very, very dark place. And it wasn't until I started integrating that with some deeper like kind of embodiment and sexuality work and trauma healing that things started to integrate. And I went from just having a stream of relationships and using my sex as currency, and even having this kind of split between this love and being able to receive love and being able to feel it through my lower regions and all of these sorts of like parts of my psyche that was one spot over here. I'd love my family, my sisters, like anything. But over here I'd have these, relationships or kind of experiences where I would get my needs met sexually, but it wasn't actually until I realized, oh, there's a split here. And the split came from a lot of layers that hadn't been met. And so my biggest passion and what lit in me over these years, so it was really my early 20s that I started really diving into those realms. I had a lot of intelligence and a lot of foresight around things, but unless there's deeper practices, it was very hard to access what the real depth and breadth of it was. And when I did, eventually it was this process of, so right here in my heart, I want that beautiful, long-term, amazing relationship. Oh, but of course, there's heaps of pain here. That's like one part of me saying, I really want this, and another part's just saying no. And there was this relationship to vulnerability and exposure and all the aspects of my feminine, which doesn't matter what gender, whatever your representation is, our feeling nature. And the more and more that starts to come into your life and into the bedroom, it affects your sexuality, it affects your confidence, your life force flowing through in ways that just pretending or putting on a mask or putting on some nice clothes or performing or looking the part just could never compare with.
Yeah, I love that. And you did touch very briefly on that journey and sacred sexuality, which leads beautifully into my next question, for those listeners who aren't sure, what exactly is sacred sexuality and how do you feel it differs from other sexual energies or other sexuality coaching techniques?
Yeah, so, there's lots to study around this particular field. But the particular niche or the angle that I hold is around erotic innocence and bringing this connection to the heart and the innocence in the heart and our feeling nature all the way into our bodies. And so that starts with a relationship with ourselves, and also not just doing like an energetic practice, but, because one of the things that I feel is that we can learn how to move energy around, we can sort of even climax, we can have all of these sexual experiences, but still feel disconnected from who we are at the core, like that emotional, deep heart longing and connection to our innocence can kind of get overridden in almost like circus tricks, if you will. And so there's a lot that you can study around this. And what I found, and this is my particular flavor that I bring in, is an integration of everything that you are, but not excluding the sex. And so a lot of places that I studied, there was almost like this split or fragmentation around sexuality. So I would go over here and do my trauma and healing work. I'd go over here and study energy healing and do all of that. And then I would go over here and do my dance and embodiment practice. And over here I do my tantra and sacred sexuality. And so something that I realized over this time is that we need to integrate those things as a practice. And I was lucky enough to be studying a lot of those things in my early 20s all at the same time. So I got to merge, but it was like, okay, so that part's not welcome here, but I'll go over here and do the trauma work on it. And that part needs to stay here. And, you know, so when I bring those things together and when I see people starting to get into their body, get into their breath, soften and feel the connection to themselves, and there's a real permission and safety to welcome what is. So that could be tears during sex. It could be rage coming up. I've had experiences where, I mean, given the context, when I'm in relationship with somebody or I'm in connection with somebody and I can advocate and share what it is that I'm feeling, it creates an opening and a softening, and that is for me holding the sacredness of sexuality, because sex is not just orgasm, it's everything, all of the waves that we ride in our human dance and experience. And so that could be the orgasmic current of tears and sadness moving through. How fully do you allow yourself to open to that? And can you bring self-pleasure into that, you know, while you're lovemaking, or does that shut off? I can't be emotional while I'm being sexual. That just doesn't work. Or, you know, or that's not sexy if I'm in that rage point or whatever it is, that's not welcome there. And so in relationship, when you can start to advocate and you know yourself well and you felt and you can move through those things, you can be like, oh, well, actually, right now, maybe we're in the middle of a sexual dance and I'm feeling rage. Are you okay for me to just let this rage run and move it through? And my experience is when women or men or whatever gender you are actually allow and have permission, there is nothing more sexy, more attractive, more vibrant and alive than somebody saying a full yes to all that they feel. And so that for me is the ecstatic current, the eros, the erotic energy moving through. It's not so much a technique or a I'm gonna do this thing and then that's gonna like make you orgasm that way. And it's like, actually it's a full dance of whatever needs to come through. And that's where you never actually get bored when you're alive. When your life force is alive, you'll never get bored because there's always something new. It's always this feminine dance and mystery. And so, yeah, I guess in summary of that, for me, it's a very holistic way of supporting people to come into their body. And who knows what's going to come. The relationship is the foreplay. The relationship to what's here in this moment and the next and the next. And that could be like a little bit of encouragement or, you know, self-talk that's really supportive, or it could be being able to have intimate conversations. But through knowing yourself, those things deepen, and all of it is foreplay. All of it's part of and sacred. It's not, okay, so that those ugly tears are not sacred. They're actually very sacred. The part of you that is broken down or rageful or doesn't know what to do, that's sexy if it's claimed and owned. And if we have that relationship within ourselves, it's a massive anchor point for safety and for connection. And when you feel safe and connected, guess what? You're relaxed, you're soft, you're open, you're in your juice, your magnetism, and you are naturally walking embodiment of sexuality. But it's integrated.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love how you talked about, you know, you didn't use the word consent, but it comes into this realm of consent, but it's this full body yes, right? Like that full body yes, that I'm allowing myself to be as I am, but I'm also allowing my partner to be present in that, and also allowing them the space to be in that full body yes. And how powerful that can be when you're both in that dance. Do you have any advice for anyone who is in a relationship with somebody who isn't maybe willing at this point, or is a bit fearful or blocked to joining them in that dance? I'm thinking that it might not be the people listening to this, but those people who are in relationship who maybe their partners aren't thinking of sexuality as a dance. They're thinking of, you know, sex as orgasm being the ultimate end, and it being this very technical space. Do you have any advice for people?
Yeah, look, I think that, I mean, I've learned this a long time ago that when I am really keen on something and I think, oh my God, this is the best thing for you, you should do this thing, it actually creates a lot of pushback. And so, I used to have that back in the day. I remember being like, oh my God, I found this amazing tool and these amazing things, and you should do this. Like, oh, I think it would be so incredible. Actually, if somebody is not quite at that stage yet where they're even curious about it, the best thing you can do is actually be a walking, living, breathing embodiment of what it is that you're wanting to bring through. And so that doesn't mean that you can't then have conversations or say that this is important to me, or share a little bit around it. But the chances are, I mean, I've had this as well with my partner, where we encourage each other in lots of different ways, and he has different perspectives and things that he's like working on. And often if he's sharing stuff, it's like information that comes in. But if I see the change in him, I'm inspired, genuinely inspired by the shift in him. And I'm like, oh, now I'm listening. Now I'm aware, like, oh, what was that? I just noticed over 3 months or 6 months, something changed. What was it? Can you tell me more about that? Because I'm actually enjoying these new flavors of you coming through. What is that? Whereas when he, if he's like, oh, you should do this and this is the way, that's its own, I mean, seeds can plant that way, but my experience is, particularly with partners, we don't always want to be told what we should or shouldn't do. There's a whole history behind that. We have our own agendas for our partners, and they feel that. And it's like, if someone says you should do that, and even if you should, you'd be like, actually, I know I should, but I'm not going to do that. It's like,
you told me I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to dig my heels in.
And so I guess one of the things, and this is probably one of the predominant things that I work with my clients and in the spaces that I hold, we start with self 100%. The journey with self is lifelong. No one's been with you through your whole life like you have, and will continue to be with you, and no one knows you like you. And so this is a process of unraveling and understanding where your edges are, who you are, what makes you tick, what your values are, what turns you on, what aspects haven't been held in reverence, whether it's through partnerships, whether it's through sexual interactions, or whether it's through your own relationship. And instead of going, I'm going to go and fix that, but really holding the intentional energy of, actually, I love you and I want to support you, and I'm feeling that this is creating a lot of pain, so I want to be here for you in that, versus there's something wrong with you, we've got to take you to a therapist, or we've got to take you to a workshop and sort that shit out. It's like there's a different energetic frequency when we add devotion to the practice of self-exploration. And so part of that is rewiring the body, re-armoring or de-armoring the conditioning and the shit that we have around our sexuality. Because the way that I see it, we are sexual beings, we are emotional beings, we're spiritual beings, and we're mental beings. And so each of those realms and domains, if one of them gets left behind, it's going to have a deficit in our lives. It creates a deficit. So integrating or bringing those all together, like what I was saying with all of those different modalities, bringing them together and the ripple effect of that. So the way that I work as well is like a lot of embodiment practice and archetypal work that integrates. So we be in the body, but we also understand with the mind, and we give the mind education and ways of coming on board and actually creating the role for the mind to hold intentional space for the body to move, to let go, and to reintegrate the sex, reintegrate the heart. And through doing that, I've noticed that when I've worked with clients that have done a lot of emotional healing, or they've done a lot of mental work or NLP, when they start to do the embodiment practices, things just they just drop in. It's not that those pieces have been for nothing. Like that work is like laying the foundations, but the embodiment is it's where we hold everything. So we experience everything through the body. The other angle that I have on that is that as a kind of mental construct or an understanding of it, the mind is like this kind of almost like the first interface, and then the emotional realms, the sexual and the body. And so you can make sense in the mind, but you still feel emotionally stuck. You can feel forgiveness in your heart, but still feel blocked in your body and in your sex, or still feel reacted or triggered in your body. And so what we do is integrate that more primal aspect, which is the most dense. The physical is the most dense, and it's the connection to the subconscious mind, to the feminine nature, if you will. And it's our animal instinct. It's super intelligent. It's so intelligent, but when we're in our mind going, I can't make sound, or this is not okay, or sex is shameful or bad or wrong, or I shouldn't have desire, or I should have desire and I don't, or I should know what to do and I don't, or whatever it is that's in the mind, it can create a disconnect from this body, and the body then stores and stores and stores, and it doesn't feel like it can even breathe or move. So when that happens, there's an overload of stimuli, of emotions, of backed up energy. And then of course it's really hard to feel sexual. It's hard to feel juiced up. It's hard to feel turned on and full of life when you're already full, but it's not the stuff that makes you full of life. It's holding. And so being able to access and tap into that ancient nature, and then have enough sense making in the mind to be able to allow the body to let go, is such a beautiful, beautiful gift to give yourself. And, we've been deconditioned from being able to just make a sound. Like if you stub your toe, the first thing your body does is like, it lets the valve go. It overrides the sense making and is like, let the energy flow. Whereas a million different other points in our day, something pisses us off, something upsets us, swallow, swallow, swallow. So it's like a practice of being able to come back into the body. And I've had experiences where when there's enough safety, when there's enough reference points, when there's enough kind of maybe even space holding or safe spaces, or maybe one-on-one support, or even healthy workshop space, then the body intelligence can just do what it needs to do. You put on some music, or, you be guided, and then it can start to unravel. I've seen miracles happen, like so many miracles happen when I've been holding this space for many, many years, like thousands of men and women all over the world, seeing what can happen when we just drop and let the body intelligence lead. And let it go. And tears could come, rage could come, all of it's welcome. And so like big personality shifts, things can move, even physical illnesses heal. Like it's really powerful when we do that.
Definitely. And because at the end of the day, the emotion is the energy that's in us, and energy is emotion. And we have to do something with it, like you said, and I was talking about this at the beginning of the retreat. We have to do something with it, and whether it's to release it, whether it's to stuff it all down, whether it's to release it in healthy ways or at somebody, it goes somewhere. And so what I'm hearing you talk about is guiding people through that journey of being able to find that those ways to release through embodiment practices, through sexuality connection, through dance, through movement, in various different modalities, but ultimately leading to kind of clearing out the body of that energy that no longer serves them.
Yeah. And what's beautiful about it is that what I found when I was just doing a lot of dance was that there wasn't a lot of intentional energy that I was bringing through when I was dancing. Like my body would dance and it would move and it would like let things move a bit. But there's a whole other aspect when we start to bring in the realms of sexuality, the archetypes, the different aspects. And then when there's certain practices and things that can support the embodiment, where you don't then leave parts of yourself behind, so that you can have a big dance or a big catharte. And so, this is where I'm talking about releasing rage or anger, for instance, this fierceness. And where I sort of was bringing in that fierce love aspect when I was thinking about fierce love and sacred sexuality, is that we can go into these intense spaces and move and almost like blast it through, but then sort of left a whole bunch of the self behind. And in that process, then we got some like repair to do. Maybe we're bruised, or maybe our throat feels ripped to shreds, or maybe we just like damaged some relationships that, you know, and then we feel shame because, oh, I just let that rage out and it was so uncalibrated. So how do we actually bring the love and the erotic innocence and the heart back into everything that we feel, which is a dance. And sometimes it might go far out that way because there's been so much repression. Or, you know, like I remember when I'd done a lot of work around anger and around rage over my time, having had chronic fatigue when I was 15, because a lot of it had been suppressed. And over that time, I was like, okay, so blowing it out, yelling at people, being in my fierce warrior doesn't work. I'm just going to shut it all down and suppress it all. That didn't work either. What I needed,
balance, right?
That's right. What I needed was to be able to actually have safe spaces created for me where I could really lose it and let that energy run through, and then blink my eyes and go, oh, I didn't kill anybody. People around me actually love me. And actually, if anything, this has encouraged the life force in the whole space to move. And how can I also bring the softness? How can I bring the parts of me that are tender, that do care about love and relationships and don't just want to burn my best friends or my business or whatever just because I've had enough? You know, how do I listen more acutely and pick up on the cues quicker and quicker and quicker? And it's through creating safe spaces and having this modeling inside the nervous system of, that's how I be in intimacy. That's part of when I talk about sexuality, I don't feel like, I think there's the genital kind of aspect of sexuality. But when I think the whole body is a sex organ. The whole body is an aspect of your aliveness. Every single thing, even a touch on your skin can turn you on, or it can, you know, touching your skin even gently could bring the tears that have been sitting there for 5 years through, you know, or even like, you know, with intention, it can start to really shift and recalibrate things. And so that's the relational aspect where it's not just, okay, we're doing a practice. There's anchoring in the nervous system, in the body, of having direct experience to being with yourself, to loving yourself there, which is, for me, that's the sacredness. There's nothing more sacred than that realm of foreplay, of intimacy.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I think there's so much to unpack in this for people. So I would even encourage people who've been listening to this. Jade has just shared so many amazing different concepts and dropped in and dropped out of different aspects. So feel free to watch the replay and really listen back and tune in to what's been resonating for you in the different aspects around, you know, sexuality, as well as connection to self, emotions. You know, she touched very briefly on the power of releasing anger. There's so much juiciness in here. If anyone's got any questions, please feel free to pop them into the comments section, and we'll take one question from the audience. What I'd really love to hear from you, Jade, is if you could just share briefly what your free gift is to the audience.
Yeah, so the free gift that I'm offering is Essential Awakening morning meditation practice. And so that is such a gentle and easy way to just start to toe dip into this work. And it's a guided meditation, goes for 6 minutes. There's also a few tracks afterwards that if you feel like you want to move your body and connect more, it's just in the flow, then you can. And then there's the 7-day challenge aspect is just to do that for 7 days consistently and just see. And the invitation that I'll make is that to just be curious and innocent. What comes, what doesn't come. There could be resistance or numbness, or it could be like all you can do is just to move your wrist around. But to do it first thing in the morning allows for the veils that are super thin when you just wake up and you're really suggestible to start to anchor, this is my time for me. How do I feel? How does my body want to move? And the mind will be less intense first thing in the morning, and it supports you for the rest of your day. So I think I don't know the studies or the science behind it, but they say the first 15 minutes when you wake up in the day has the potential to affect the rest of your day. And so what better way than to just start to get to know and have this really gentle, sensual embodiment practice. And then there's a journal question as well at the end of each day. And so if you do 7 days, I would recommend that you just set that, if you wake up at 8 a.m., then set your timer for 7:50, and you don't even have to get out of bed. All you have to do is press play, and just, it's really gentle, and it doesn't matter what your gender, again, you can play with that and move with that. So I offer that to my clients. I do that still myself, even though it's my guidance. Like, it's so beautiful. And so, yeah, I'm happy to gift that to you all.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. And I think it'll be a really powerful journey for people who've been listening and this is really aligned to you, to jump on, grab that gift from Jade and do the full 7 days. Commit yourself to spending that 1 week that could change a significant proportion of your mindset and your connection to your body. This could be the moment that transforms something for you and gives you that opportunity to be called in to a different space. So thank you, Jade, for that. Did we have any questions? No, so we didn't have any questions, but I just wanted to share that there was a beautiful comment. Just what I needed to hear. Namahi from Aotearoa. So one of our listeners was saying, thank you very much for this beautiful sharing that you were channeling through, Jade. So we will be dropping the link for your Instagram in now as well, so people can follow you on Instagram and hear more about the type of work that you do as well. I just want to say a big thank you for tuning in from all the way from Australia for us, and representing that part of the globe and providing such a unique perspective on, and such an integrated perspective on sacred sexuality, and on embodiment, and on joy and practices for connecting and innocence and fun. Ultimately, right? That's what a lot of this leads to.
Yeah, thank you. And also, for those that, like, this is obviously, like you shared, it's such a beautiful and rich topic and it can go so many ways. But yeah, of course, the invitation is open as well if anyone has any questions to directly message me. And this is my absolute passion and my joy, and I love hearing from people too. So yeah, thank you for having me. And yeah, I hope that